goes back to where he lives. It's never used like that. It's always, this person has a vision, there is a purpose, a direction, an intended outcome. And that person is in the journey toward the intended outcome. They're somehow intercepted by somebody who then continues the journey that's already existing with them. So I'm saying that to say, the way 1 Thessalonians suggests us meeting the Lord, it's not that we meet Him and that we have a 7-year feast, which some people believe to be true. You'll hear teaching about a 7-year feast, a wedding feast that happens for 7 years, and they'll actually use the Matthew 25 scripture to talk about it. Well, they went into the wedding feast. In the parable, yeah, they did. It's true. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's 7 years, though, that they were there, right? Or any other time frame for that matter. So there is, I'm dispelling a myth because Scripture doesn't support it. And it's one of those things that when you see how the word is used and you see the constancy that's used with, and again, this is one of those words that's used 6 times. That one word is a very specific Greek word. It's not like, go meet your brother at the store, right? That is a different verb, right? When I say I'm going to meet a dignitary, in English we use the same word, but languages aren't all created the same way. In Greek, that word meet is very specific. It's not the general word for to accompany somebody. It is the word for greeting a newly arriving dignitary. It's a different type of meet. It's more specific. So when we look at Matthew 25, going back to Matthew 25 now. When we go back to Matthew 25 and we look to see what the parable of the virgins suggests, the parable of the virgins really suggests that what is happening with the righteous is that we meet the Lord in the air, according to 1 Thessalonians 4, and we're just together with Him in the air for a very short period of time before we turn right back around and come back with Him. So if you mix this with Matthew 24, what you have is the sign of the Son of Man. The earth sees Jesus miraculously, supernaturally, sees Him coming in the clouds. As we see Him coming, the church, the righteous are gathered to meet Him, and we end up then coming back with Him. And it's just a very short period of time between the time we see the sign of the Son and the actual coming of the Son touching the ground on the Mount of Olives. And I think that's one of the reasons why in Matthew 24, those verses are so back-to-back. Remember where I said verse 36 and verse 37? It shifts. I said, but of that day and hour knows no man, not the angels, but only my Father only. It's talking about the sign. And then it says, but as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son be. So it's because the sign of the Son abuts the actual coming, because we see the sign of Him, we're gathered together with Him, and then we usher Him back as part of His kingdom, as part of His entourage. Kind of interesting. That's the way the Greek word apanthesis would explain that. Okay, let's move on to verse 14. Anybody have questions about that before we keep going? I know that we covered a lot. Thoughts, interactions, ponderings, frustrations, anger explosions, anything like that? No? All right, here we go.